You know, what's the most exciting moment in a game of chess? For a lot of people, it's the attack. Well, that's what we're diving into today. The art of the attack. How the best players in the world managed to tear down what looked like totally impenetrable defenses to go straight for the king. So, let's start with a really basic question. How do you attack a fortress? Because really, that's exactly what you're up against. A good chess defense is a carefully constructed wall of pieces, and it's designed to be unbeatable. And the ultimate fortress on the board? That's the castled king. It's tucked away, safe and sound behind the shield of its own pawns. The whole position is designed for maximum safety. So the entire challenge, the entire puzzle, is figuring out how you're supposed to breach that wall. All right, first up, the King's Fortress. We're going to explore why this defensive setup is so powerful and, more importantly, how you can start looking for its hidden secrets. Now here's the thing. Attacking this fortress, it's not just for the wild, aggressive players out there. A key insight from our analysis is that an attack is often the most logical, even necessary path forward. Sometimes, it's literally the only way to stop the game from just fizzling out. So if the fortress is so strong, how in the world do you get in? Well, you have to think like a siege engineer. You look for the cracks. Because every defensive structure, no matter how solid it looks on the surface, has weak points. The real secret is knowing where to look. And this brings us to this really cool concept of a focal point. This right here is the attacker's secret weapon. It's a specific square, a little chink in the armor, where you can concentrate all your forces. For the defender, it's a total nightmare. Finding this square is that aha moment of the attack. But here's the catch. Not all weak squares are created equal. For a castled king, the pawns on the h7 and g7 squares are really common targets. Now, going after the h-pawn is often easier to set up, but the problem is the king has a quick escape route. Going after the g-pawn, that's a lot harder, but if you break through, it's usually lights out. Attackers are constantly making these kinds of strategic trade-offs. And this is how a single weakness can just completely spiral. Great attackers, they don't just find one focal point. They create a whole network of weak squares, often all on the same color, just like the ones you see here. By controlling this network, maybe with a super powerful queen or a bishop, they can completely paralyze the king's defense. Okay, so we've found the weak points. Now what? Well, now it's time to bring out the big guns, the weapons of the attack. These are the classic, time-tested patterns that the best players use to smash through the defense. First up is a legendary one, the classic bishop sacrifice. Seriously, think of it like a recipe. You need the right ingredients in place. A bishop staring down the h7 square, a knight coiled up and ready to jump to g5, and crucially, analysis shows the single most important supporting piece is often a simple pawn right in the center. With everything aligned, boom, this sacrifice shatters the wall. Another powerful weapon is what's called the bayonet attack. This one is like a pawn storm. You're basically starting an avalanche and letting it roll towards the king. It's a bit slower, more methodical. First, you get the pawn push going. Then you bring in your other pieces to support it. And finally, you engineer that breakthrough moment. But hold on, chess is a two-player game, right? The defender isn't just sitting there waiting to get checkmated. No way. They are actively fighting back. And believe me, they have their own powerful playbook.
Defenses pretty much fall into two main categories. Direct defense is what you'd probably expect. You reinforce the fortress, you bring pieces back to protect the king. It's passive. But then there's indirect defense, and that's all about being active. It's about starting a fire on the other side of the board, a counterattack that forces the attacker to divert their attention and their resources.
So here are some of the specific tools in the defender's kit. A blockade can stop a pawn storm dead in its tracks. Eliminating the opponent's queen can take all the venom right out of an attack. Overprotection, that means piling on more defenders than you even think you need on a key square. And you can never, ever forget the simplest defense of all, the king's flight, which can unravel a beautiful attack just by running away. So we've seen the tactics, we've seen the individual moves, but what really ties it all together? Well, this is where we move beyond pure calculation and into something that feels a lot more like art. And this, right here, this is the secret of the masters. It's the central principle of the entire attack. It's not just about throwing pieces forward. It's about obtaining the maximum preconditions for an attack with the minimum of commitment. Basically, setting up the perfect conditions while risking as little as possible. So what does that actually mean? It means the best attacks are often built slowly, patiently. True mastery isn't just attacking. It's about creating threats and potential, building pressure piece by piece, so that when the final blow finally comes, it's a decisive knockout, not just some desperate gamble.
Think about this idea of commitment as a kind of a graduated scale. Moving an F-pawn, that's a pretty small step. Bringing over a knight for the attack, that's a bigger commitment. But advancing your G-pawn, wow, that is going all in. You are weakening your own king's cover, and that's a move that there is often no coming back from. Great players, they just have this intuitive feel for exactly how much to commit and exactly when to do it.
Which brings us to our final question. Is a chess attack a science, or is it an art? Is it all just cold, hard calculation of focal points and pawn breaks? Or is it a creative act of pure imagination? The truth, of course, is that it's both. And mastering that incredible blend is what makes the art of attack so endlessly fascinating.